Hey everyone, just gotta thank my friends and family. It's been a grind, but I am just about to post my first sustainable development goal video, Robert Rawlins Ramble, on time. Yes. It's been a long time coming, but I'm bumped up. Now it might be that, but it might just be because the weather's so fantastic that I'm so excited about life right now. Get out there and be healthy. Which brings us to SDG number 3. See what I did there? Which is healthy lives, or focused on healthy lives. What's the goal? To ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. It's one of 17 sustainable development goals put together by the UN and all of its member states, including Canada, to make the world a better place. So ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. It's a big goal, and it kind of encompasses what the SDGs are all about. Creating healthy lives for people and giving them a sense of well-being. Wow, like what else do we want in life? This is why it's a huge goal with a number of targets, and it's also cool because it shows us what the world, at least what our representatives created as, hey, this is what a healthy life looks like, but not only just healthy physically, but what a life of well-being and purpose looks like, which is a deep question to ask ourselves. So let's see what we came up with as a world. Well, the first kind of section of the targets is, well, to have a healthy life, we have to have a life. So it's about cutting down preventable deaths due to diseases and premature deaths and maternal deaths. Second is being physically healthy is very important. Once we have that life, being actually physically capable and physically healthy. And then kind of mentally health, which in these targets is basically summed up in not committing suicide, which is a pretty shallow view of mental health, but we'll dig into that a bit more. Again, this series is about seeing to the point of it affecting us, these issues and these targets and these goals in our own lives. So I'm going to focus on one specific target, and specifically in Canada. So one of the targets is reduced by a third premature deaths due to non-communicable diseases, so cardiovascular diseases, cancer, diabetes, chronic respiratory disease, and suicide, which is obviously encompassed in the promoting mental health. Why I'm focusing on this is because, well, in Canada we're not really too worried about AIDS or malaria as obviously relative to developing world nations. So I think this target, we can actually make some movement in our own lives based on the behavioral choices that we make. So what are kind of the stats in terms of that goal? Well, 18% of us currently smoke. That's almost 1 in 5. Same amount of us currently are heavy drinkers. Almost the same, 17.7% of us have high blood pressure. More than half of us adults are overweight and obese. A quarter of our youth are overweight or obese. Perhaps this has a part to play. Just over half of us are physically active, and we see 11 suicides per day in Canada. These are obviously not figures that we want to be at, and these are all individual decisions, or a lot of them are preventable. So maybe we can dive into seeing, okay, what can we do about it? But first, some figures. I think we're going to take it in kind of the mental health. I think if we're healthy-minded, I don't think we would turn to alcohol or smoking or maybe binge eating or self-harm. I think that would be a good start. So let's dive into, and obviously I don't have expertise on this. I'm just doing a bit of research on mental health in Canada. So what are the statistics? 1 in 5 of us Canadians experience mental illness in any given year. By 40, every other Canadian has experienced a mental illness in their lifetime, and more than a third of high school students have experienced mental illness. Why I think it's so important to focus on this mental illness, which the overall goal didn't really focus on? Well, I think, again, mental illness has such an impact on other areas. For example, long-term health is linked to mood disorder. People with mental illness or struggling with mental illness are twice as likely to struggle with substance abuse. Obesity and being overweight is also linked to mental health issues. We know when we're feeling down and out, what we do? Often a lot of us turn to food. Or feeling down on ourselves. That's a huge area that needs to be addressed. People with struggling with mental illnesses are more likely to die prematurely, which is another target of this Sustainable Development Goal for healthy lives, and their lives are actually cut short by, on average, 10 to 20 years or thereabouts. And the overall disease burden of mental illnesses is 1.5 times greater than all of cancer put together or combined, and 7 times greater than all infectious diseases. So this just shows you just the magnitude of mental illness issues, at least in Canada's situation. Here's further proof of the importance of mental health and perhaps what mental health and kind of relational health does to our overall health. The Harvard study, which is done by a school you may have heard of, did this fantastic lifelong study. It's actually still ongoing. It's the longest study ever done, looking at demographics, jobs, different age groups, different areas of living, different economic statuses, and they looked at trends throughout their entire lives and kind of searched for relationships, for trends that they could kind of tie together and make some sense out of life. What did they find? Well, if I wanted to predict my health 30 years down the road, they found, and my cardiovascular health, they found that looking at my blood pressure level, which would be the normal thing to do, go to the doctor and see how my numbers are, is less effective than looking at my relational health. That has huge ramifications for what we deem as healthy and what we deem as healthful lives. That's saying, let me repeat it. If I wanted to figure out, am I going to be a healthy person 30 years down the road? I would be better going to each of my family members, my parents, my brother, and my 2 sisters, my girlfriend, my great friends, and even people I kind of, my close relationships. It'd be better to analyze those relationships than actually to get my blood taken, which I just did to see if I was healthy or not. It would be better to look at those relational health, those relationships, to figure out, am I going to be healthy in 30 years? That's incredible. It shows the importance of relationships and doing life with each other in terms of mental health and physical health. Now, unfortunately, so I guess my hypothesis is maybe loneliness, which is relational deficiency, could be a main cause for mental and therefore physical illness. If we want healthy lives, we need to focus on our relationships. Fortunately, this is not the trend that is actually showing itself right now. Actually, me and my peers, the 20-somethings in the world, are moving further and further away from the mold that our previous generations have set of, hey, I don't like the construct of the world right now. Let's bond together and start a revolution and change it. That was what our parents did. That's what their parents did. Us, we're feeling that same trap feeling, but instead of saying, hey, let's bond together and let's make change for the better, for the community, we're looking for individual escapes. Maybe that's moving across the world, or I don't know, but just isolating ourselves, looking for isolated escapes from this kind of structured society, which is obviously not too relationally full. Another study found that, and a self-reflecting study found that we see our relationships as not as healthy as people did 50 years ago. So again, not a fantastic trend. With all this in mind, how then shall we live? If we're looking at trying to make our lives as healthy as possible, for this video, for this goal, we're looking at what we can do in our own lives for our physical, but what we've just learned is how tied in our mental health and then our relational health is. What can we do? Well, first thing, make health a priority. So you can change that right now. Exercise for 30 minutes 5 times a week. That's what Canada, like the bare basic minimum, says everyone should be getting. 30 minutes 5 times a week. And eat healthy, eat well. Mostly vegetables and fruits, lean meats, beans, legumes. Just eat well. Look at the ingredients, and if you don't understand them, don't eat it. Stay to the outside of the supermarket and you'd be so much better off. Second, which is, again, as Harvard has pointed out, is probably more important or beneficial to the first goal, is prioritizing relationships, your key relationships in life. So what's a practical way? How can we grow a relationship while spending time with each other? So I suggest a practical step: enlist an accountability partner to keep you accountable for the first 2 things of eating healthy and exercising every day. Where did this accountability partner idea come from? Well, the early church, what Jesus first said about, this is what community should look like. Jesus had tons to say about community life. People doing life together. That's what that church was. Never supposed to be a building with one person. No, people doing life together, a group, encouraging each other, holding each other accountable in love, eating together, serving each other, and working through tough problems together, doing life together. That's so cool. And I just want to shout out to Duncan, who started this initiative at our church, and it just has such a great impact on a number of my relationships. And third, see others and act. So prioritize relationships. Make sure it's not just you focused. Remember, seeing others where they are. One thing that really helps me as a Christian is understanding that each person around me is created in the image of God. They are beautiful creations from God, and man, does that encourage us to want to find out something new about them. Whether it be a colleague, classmate, close friend, or your family member, they all are beautiful creations, and wow, what an opportunity we have to engage with them today in this moment. Oh my gosh. A second thing is reconnect with an old friend. Don't you love getting those messages from old friends? The first thing that often goes through my mind, maybe you're the same, is, oh my gosh, I love that feeling of feeling loved and worth it. Oh, that's amazing. And then that second thing of, why did I wait? Why didn't I initiate? Be those people. And I'm not saying never accept it when it happens to you, because it's a beautiful gift, but wow, doesn't that make you want to give that gift? You never know what someone's going through. You never know if they're stuck in their head in terms of mental health. Reach out to someone. So find out something new about a colleague at work today and reach out to someone you haven't talked to in a while. It's interesting. Just a few last notes. C.S. Lewis, a pretty good writer, you may have heard of him, has such an interesting depiction of what hell is. He suggested that hell is not this fiery place of weird organisms or animals or creatures. No, hell is being completely independent of each other, which is so funny because it's kind of what we're all aiming for in life, being completely independent in our own house with our own savings account, so we don't have to rely on other people. And he's suggesting, actually, that's going to drive us to isolation. That's going to drive us to hell, being completely apart from each other. So cool, just that. And it shows in these studies, in the Harvard study. Our lives are dependent on each other. We need each other to affirm our each other's humanities. That's so beautiful. Which again, the last quote from Life of the Beloved, because it's one of my favorites. Our humanity comes to its fullest bloom in giving. We become beautiful people when we give whatever we can give. Whatever we can give. That's such a fantastic thing in terms of, hey, what can we do today in our lives? How then shall we live? Give whatever you can give. A smile, a handshake, a kiss, an embrace, a word of love, a present, a part of our life, all of our life. Oh man, if we each lived like that, and I understand we have to understand how much we've been given first in order to give. And so if you don't understand that part first, then that's the first step. But if you understand how much you've been given in this life, the sacrifice that has been made for you, we should be so motivated to show that sacrifice and show that love to other people. I think that would help so much with our loneliness epidemic, basically, in Canada, deal with our mental health issues, and just create more more sense of well-being, more sense of purpose, and more connection with each other, and just give us all, help each other have great, healthy lives. And just that community, that beautiful doing life together framework. Anyways, so excited to hear what you guys have to say about it. Really looking forward to next week. So what can we do this week? Exercise and eat well, but get someone to keep you accountable and engage in that relationship. Remember that early church model, doing life together, seeing others, find out something new about a family member or a friend, and reach out to someone you haven't talked to in a while. And remember, life is about giving of ourselves. Anyway, I'll stop now. See you guys.